Hello, everybody. Welcome to Artist Corner. Today I'm joined by Scottie Madonia.
What's up, Nolan?
What's up, man? He's a podcast host, musician, and all around a really hardworking and chill guy. So, yeah, thank you so much for
Wow.
joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm usually the person that's like asking people to talk to them. So I was so flattered that you wanted me to be on. I'm so excited. I love what you're doing because I hadn't heard about it till you emailed me. And then you said were about, I think, I remember if you had just interviewed Bill or you were about to.
Yeah.
And I watched that, and then I'm a subscriber. I am a Nolan fan 100% now.
Yes, the more
So
the better.
thank you for having me on. I'm very excited.
Of course, I'm really excited to talk to you. I think it'll be really helpful because I've never talked to someone else who's also a podcast host before.
Mhm.
And yeah,
Yeah,
this will be a good experience.
awesome.
So, are there any interviewers that have been a good role model to you, whether well known or obscure? And have they inspired you how you formulate your questions?
Oh yeah. I grew up because of my father listening to Howard Stern. That was like the absolute basis was Howard Stern. And I still think he is the best interviewer that's really I've never heard anyone who's as consistently good as he is. And there are certain parts of his kind of career in terms of interviews that I like more than others. I specifically like when he first went to Sirius XM, which I think was in 2006. I think that was his absolute best because he was had this perfect mix of still kind of being angsty, and now he's a little more mainstream. But back then he had this access to do these really long interviews. He could swear, he could do whatever he wanted, but he was still kind of that alt crowd. So I don't know. I think that was like perfect era Howard Stern for that. And then David Letterman. I love David Letterman
Oh,
and
yeah.
Bill Wurtz, who I know we just talked about, you interviewed. Uh, he has gotten me like really into into David Letterman lately,
Yeah.
more so than even in the past. So yeah, I'd say Howard and Letterman, and I'm trying to think who else. Honestly, 90% of it is Howard Stern. I don't know if that comes across. It's more of like my passion for interviewing people comes from him rather than I know if it's like specific traits,
Hmm.
but he is, I'd say, most of the inspo.
Yeah, I feel kind of bad. I don't think I've seen an interview from either of them,
Hmm.
but that gives me a really, I guess I'm really excited because now I have more people to look into in that field.
Yeah. Howard is he's definitely he was kind of this is ironic because he thinks podcasting is like stupid and not real entertainment because you don't, which is just like, how everyone who like, even if they're like the cool edgy alt person at one time then becomes the kind of crotchety, they can't keep up kind of thing. And one thing
Yeah.
that I has annoyed me about him is it's been a while since I've listened to his recent stuff, but he is just like, now podcasting's not radio, it's not all this. But meanwhile, he kind of was the original thing. On Sirius XM, there you can do whatever you want. There weren't rules like there were on terrestrial radio. And that's how podcasting is. Sirius XM, which he kind of brought to the forefront, is essentially what podcasting is now. And in fact, a big part of Sirius XM's business is their online streaming on their app, which is just a podcast. But my point being is that he really, if you're someone who likes the really long form, um, unedited type of interview, which is what I really like. He
Me
is
too.
just I think the pinnacle of that.
Great. Yeah. I I really try my best to contribute to the long form content, especially
Hmm.
nowadays when there's so much short form content. I think
Yeah.
it's so valuable now that it's not even that hard to do if you have the attention span for it. And I
Yeah.
think, yeah, it's really cool.
I love long form interviews. Like I my one of my favorite things is just like putting on something really long, like 2 or 3 hour long interviews, especially if I'm doing something that's like it's probably overstimulation or overstimulation, but it's maybe not the best habit, but I love to do that. Just put on like if I'm working on something or if I'm like playing video games or something, editing clips for my channel or something. I love listening to long interviews, which is ironic because on my channel I kind of keep it to not short, but definitely not really long. I do about 45 minutes.
Hmm.
Um, but when I'm like just in my own time listening to stuff, I love really, really long interviews. That's my jam.
What is the most recent podcast or interview host that you've listened to?
Most recent would be you, Nolan. I was watching your interview with Kevin MacLeod.
Oh, what'd
Yeah.
you think of it?
Amazing. And I mean, you were fantastic. Kevin is always like he's just like the nicest guy. He's one, I'd say like top five people that I've had the fortune of interviewing. He is
He's
so
awesome.
nice. He is so absolutely just like happy to be there and
Yeah.
having a good time. And yeah, so on a technical level, you were the most recent. Besides that, I'll occasionally, if there's like a really good musician, because my background is in music, I'll listen to any Joe Rogan interview. Like trying to think of the most recent one I listened to with him. Uh, I love he has one with Steven Tyler from Aerosmith. Anytime there's musicians on Joe Rogan, I love that because that's again like probably like 3.5 hours of just talking. And I unplugged my headphones, Nolan.
Oh, you're good. You're
Oh,
good.
we're good. Okay, now we're good. Now we're good. But
It's
yeah.
actually, yeah, speaking of that, it's funny you say that. When I reached out to Kevin too, he told, I don't know if I should say this. I guess it's not anything bad. It's just he told me
Well, if you
that he didn't have his microphone plugged in, and that when I asked for feedback, he said that I should be asking people to have a webcam, a microphone, and all that stuff.
oh,
Even
so they
yeah, even if it's someone who's in that career, because apparently people don't always have that set up, which you would think they would, you know?
yeah, I'd say most of the people I've had on my YouTube channel are usually just webcams. I prefer when they have a mic, but for me, and I'm the kind I like technical stuff. I much prefer listening to content where I there is at least some level of production value. That's my
Yeah.
favorite. I'm not super picky, but when people come on my show, usually it's the show's live streamed and they usually join like the first time I'm talking to them is like 2 or 3 minutes beforehand. So my to be honest, most of the time I forget to ask because I'm just like making sure that like the video's coming through and that I can hear them at all. And then I'm just basically just go live. Um, but hey, that's really good. I gotta start doing that. I gotta start like reminding people,
Yeah,
you know?
that's something I've been doing ever since Kevin told me about it. And
Yeah.
yeah. Are there any techniques that you use when interviewing people to lessen the silence?
Oh Lord. If I give an answer, then it's immediately proven wrong because there are so many times when there's silence because I'm
Yeah.
um
I don't think silence is a bad thing, but
no, it's there's a couple there's like good silence because there's real thinking going on.
yeah.
And then there's sometimes silence where my brain just shuts off and I'm not thinking, I'm thinking about the fact that I can't come up with anything to say. Um
I've done that a couple times.
it's natural. I mean, think about it like in any conversation, just because it's on video doesn't change the fact that it is just two people talking. And
Yeah.
when I'm talking to my friends or my roommate, I might stop talking for 2 minutes at a time. So the fact that you have to fill all that space is kind of unnatural.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if there's anything specific. The one thing I really like, I prepare very heavily with information about the person, as much information I can get. And I have it where I can see it if I need to. But the main thing is just having things about them, not necessarily always a specific question, but information about them that is in the back of my head. So when I feel myself, I can like kind of feel whatever we're talking about coming to a T. I can quickly, if I start to, get a little nervous and not feel like I have a good question to ask, I can use that information about them to kind of just jumpstart something. And sometimes I'll just start on a topic and then by the end of it, hope a question comes out, or
Yeah,
even better, the thing I'm talking about, they interrupt and start just talking. That's the best.
that is the
But really,
best.
it's really just having just good information. That's not always specifically related to a question, just kind of in the back of your head on notes that you can just be glancing at. So that way you always have something to go off of. And then you just kind of throw yourself into the fire a million times and just start talking. And sometimes you'll end up with something where you go, oh man, I'm really good at this. Like I'm really, really, really good at this. And then the other 80% of the time, you end up saying something and going, I don't even know what I meant by that.
Yeah.
But yeah, just having info is always is what I think is the best way for me at least.
Yeah, I think what helps me too is I always have guests on that I'm genuinely fans of. So
Yes.
I already have some kind of idea of
Mhm.
maybe I don't know everything about them. And even if you do a ton of research, I don't think that's possible anyway. But
Yeah.
I think it helps when you are already interested in them as people. And then if you're already curious about how they do stuff and just actually want to know more about them, I think that helps.
One of the best things someone ever told me, I went to this school called the New School in Manhattan, and I was a drumming performance major, but my I was also taking music production classes from this amazing producer. His name's Hank Shockley. He started this group called Public Enemy, they're like the rap group Public Enemy.
Mm,
And he was part of their production team called the Bomb Squad. So it was like he started Public Enemy, but then he was the Bomb Squad, which made all of their beats and their music and all that. And he was just nice enough to be a guest on my show just because I knew him from college. And I can't remember if this was, I think this was, it might have been right after, like the week after I had a private lesson with him, at the week after he was on my show. He said, just always, every question you ask, make sure you care. That's
yeah.
the number one thing. He said, because even if the person that you're talking to, even if everyone watching isn't necessarily the biggest fan of them, they will have fun listening to you guys talk if the thing you're asking is something that you genuinely want to know, because people can pick up on that
Yeah, yeah.
versus you're just trying to fill time. And that's obviously not going to be perfect. You're not always going to be asking a question that you're like, if I don't know the answer to this, I'm going to go crazy. That can't be it all the time. Sometimes you just have to keep stuff going. Um, but that really stuck with me when he said that. He was like, if you have don't just say something, ha ask something that you think you can learn from, because people will sense that, and they'll be more interested in what they're going to say because you are already obviously interested in it.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I do write a lot of questions down, but when it comes to the show, already so curious about a lot of stuff. I just ask whatever I'm already curious about,
Yeah.
and that helps so much.
I always think that the best way to do kind of anything is you over prepare, but then you don't really use your preparation in the like strict sense. You basically just do it to lay like a blanket, especially like as a drummer when I have to like play a show or something. Over prepare, and I don't always do that. Let me clarify. Sometimes I don't always prepare enough, but I think the best way to do it is prepare as much as possible so you're just confident, and then you just kind of go from there. It's much better to have too much information and to not use it than to uh, you know, I don't know. That's just what I always try to do.
Yeah.
That made no sense, but
No,
we'll see.
yeah, that's a great answer. Can I think for a second?
I got a hot cup of coffee, Nolan. Take as much time as you need. I'm chilling. I have my this is a branded cup. This is a CBS Mornings, CBS National News. I was an intern at this show. I'm gonna flex now.
Oh,
And by flex, I mean I was there for 6 months and then I got rotated to another show because that's how the internships at CBS work. It's actually the Page program, but
oh yeah.
there you go.
Speaking of interning, is it okay if we talk about the thing I asked you a while ago?
Absolutely, Nolan. I was thinking about it. I'm still trying to figure out. I you know what's funny? It's just trying to figure out a place where I could have you work on the show. I don't know if I have anything yet, just because I love all the like little minute details of making
Yeah.
content. It doesn't seem like much. Like, when I say like, oh, I have an interview show, it just seems like, oh, people come on and you talk for an hour and then that's it. But there's a lot of little things.
Yeah,
But if I come up with something, Nolan, you are at the
yeah.
top of my list. And same, if you need
Yes.
an intern, I'll be your intern. We'll be each
Yes.
other. We'll be like, we're gonna get it'll be not profitable for either of us because I'll be doing the stuff for your show, what you'll be doing for me. But
So,
yeah,
wow, yeah. Can I think for a second?
like I said, take as much time. I'm just chilling.
So, when you worked for those news shows,
Uh-huh.
was the process completely different compared to how you do your show?
Well, first of all, I'm making about $10 million less a year than the people on the shows that I was working on. That's I actually don't know how much they make. So let me just clarify that. I've never seen any pay stubs. I'm just in, what I read on the news. Um, to be honest, I actually kind of learned a lot about how things can be put together in last minute and how it's not like you a lot of live television is you think there's a lot of long-term prep work, but a lot of it is people just thinking on the fly and putting stuff together.
Hmm.
And that kind of makes it nervous since I live stream everything, all my episodes. It makes me a little bit less nervous about the idea that I might be putting stuff together up until right before I go live. Before I thought, oh, I have to be like ready, ready, ready 4 days ahead of time. But now I don't know because of that. It's because it made it kind of more normalized to see that how live television works and how sometimes they're just 2 minutes before they're airing, they're getting prepared for it. That is sort of something that I learned from that in terms of it. In terms of the actual way I produce it, well, I'm using all free software. That's one big difference. I'm using OBS and DaVinci Resolve. I don't I don't know if there's really I'm going off on a crazy tangent here.
You're
I don't
good.
know if there's a lot of overlap in how they do it. Um, but just really just one thing that I learned is that like it's okay for it to be hectic as long as right when you are recording you are calm. That's okay. And it's normal to be stressed about something up to the minute that it happens. You don't have to be perfectly ready and perfectly confident 24 hours ahead of time to get something good out on the air because if that was true, live news, Saturday Night Live would not exist. So that's one little thing.
I'm so glad I'm talking to you about this stuff. It makes me feel so much better because whenever I do the show, I actually get. I mean, I've had episodes before where I said a lot that I get nervous and I had to take a moment to breathe.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And I'm trying to do my best to do that less, but it makes me feel better that that's normal for people.
Oh yeah. I no, I'll tell you, this is gonna sound so ridiculous. I up until because I started my channel in September, I think, of 2020, and I basically did it for a year and a half, and then I had my job as a page, which I loved, but the schedule was so tight and it would change constantly. Like they'd call you the day before sometimes and be like, you're working a totally different TV show tomorrow. And so I couldn't really schedule with people. Like I couldn't schedule interviews because I might have to cancel. And I actually had to cancel my first week as a page, an interview with this guitarist named Mark Lettieri from the band Snarky Puppy, who
Mm.
he was I don't know why he was nice enough to when I emailed a year later and said, "Can we reschedule? I'm sorry about canceling a year ago." He was nice enough to do it.
That's
Um,
awesome.
but uh, what was I saying? I was saying about the pages. Oh yeah. Um, Actually, I don't know. What was the question you asked me? Again, this is gonna happen. I'm gonna go off topic.
Yeah, you're good. That happens to me too, where I just completely forget on my show. But
Yeah.
I think I asked you,
Oh, you were talking about being nervous.
yeah.
That's what it is. Everyone's gonna watch this and go, I'm not gonna. They're like, why would I watch this kid ramble on some other channel about getting being an intern? Um, I so I did those like year and a half, took a year off, and then I started my show back up, right? I used to get so nervous, and it's as recent as when I restarted, which was about a year and a half ago, that on the days where I would live stream, I literally could not eat. Now, here's the thing. Was anyone watching these live streams? No. My mother and father were. That's it. So it's not like there was this, I don't know what it was, but I wanted to do well so badly that I would literally like the day of an interview with someone, it didn't matter who it was, I would just not eat. I would just be like sitting in my room, just like dreading it. It's like weird, dreading for it to happen, but excited for it to happen.
Yeah.
Because I'm just like, oh, I'm gonna say something stupid, and then and then the internet's gonna crash, and then why am I doing this? It was up till like a year ago, maybe a year and a half, where I could function leading up to having to do an interview, which just sounds it's so ridiculous. But my point is that it's very normal, and I think I don't think it would. I think it'd be normal to not have some amount of nerves. Maybe it's also not normal to have that extent, but you know, I don't know how other people feel about it.
I think it's better than none at all. I mean, I don't, I actually, when I've listened to your episodes, I've heard that you're also a fan of Nardwuar. Is that right?
You're totally see now Nardwuar is someone who I love, but I don't. He's like the total kind of the opposite of how I do things, where he is. I don't think anyone knows more about a guest ever than Nardwuar. Like my dream would be to do that, but I physically can't find out how to have as much information about every single person on my show as Nardwuar does about his. It's insane. Nardwuar is the absolute man. Like I said,
He's
he's
a,
not.
yeah,
I don't think my style is similar to his, but he's just the best. He's
he's a
just
goat
like
for sure. Yeah.
I should have mentioned him earlier as like someone who's amazing.
I was gonna ask, have you seen his TED Talk where he talks about nervousness and a bunch of other stuff?
I know I did. Was probably years ago, so I don't really remember specifics, but I'm
Oh,
sure in one of my many Nardwuar like binges,
yeah.
I'm sure I've seen it.
Well,
But
I think his TED Talk really inspired my current view on nervousness because even right now I'm nervous saying this, which is funny. But basically, how he described nervousness is that it's a good thing to have because that shows that you're excited. And
I have heard this. I've
yeah,
had yes. Okay.
yeah, that's how I view nervousness now, and it's all thanks to his TED Talk.
That's a really positive way to look at that. Because that's true. If you're not nervous, it means you don't care. And if you don't care, no one else is gonna care. You know?
Yeah.
A lot of people don't care about things, Nolan. You know? A lot of people pretend to care about things. And there are definitely some things that I pretend to care about. That's I can't even I'm a total hypocrite. There are definitely some things where I pretend to care about it, but you know, this is not one of them.
Sometimes I wonder if I overthink too much on my show, and
In what way?
I guess I can't remember now. It's probably because I'm overthinking too much about what I was thinking about, and now I can't remember.
I've been there a million times. I know exactly what you're saying.
That's funny. There's gonna be
Mhm.
so many meta questions because I'm interviewing an interviewer, and it's gonna be
Uh-huh.
so interesting.
Yeah, you know, well, look, you and I are in the exact same boat. We're trying to do very similar things, and we're just figuring it out at the exact same time. So this is like, you know, this is like couples therapy. We're both we're both in the exact same ship. Um, but
And
you
we're
have a
sinking a little. No, I'm just kidding.
you're there's
Just
always a
kidding.
little bit. You got to be sinking a little bit, otherwise you're too confident, and then you'll crash into an iceberg. You know. But yeah.
What do you think makes a good question?
The first thing being that, like I said earlier, and well, it's actually you said it first, but about care, really wanting to know it. Um, and then that really is honestly, that's really it. It's just you genuinely asking it, not asking it because you have to. And one thing is, as long as it doesn't start with what was it like? I'm never those questions I'm usually not a fan of. So if you care about it and the question doesn't start with what was it like, then that I think it makes a good one.
Cool. Do you ever on your show, do you ever accidentally ask a question that was basically the same as another question that you asked previously?
Yes. Yes, a million times yes. I have a bad tendency, which I've probably already displayed, to say something and then immediately forget that I say it, and then just start talking about something else, and all of a sudden I've gone around the roundabout 75 times and I'm back where I started. And that's especially you I do that normally. Like that's just when I'm with my friends, they will bust my chops about the fact that I will bring up something I've already brought up. Now you add to it that I know I'm on camera and I'm trying to not seem incompetent to the person who just responded to my email out of the goodness of their heart and is on my show. And then I'm also with mine, I'm doing camera cutting and I'm controlling graphics and stuff with my right hand as I'm talking to people.
Mm.
So you add in the ambidextrosity or whatever it is, and it just makes it worse. So I don't have any specific ones that I remember, probably because when it happens, I'm like miserable about it for a day and try to wipe it out of my head. But 100% I do that.
Have you worked on getting better at that at all? And would you have any advice for keeping that attention when you're talking to someone?
It's I I think I have gotten better at it, but it's definitely not something that's perfect. I don't think you can be perfect at speaking ever. I mean, there are people who are 95 years old and they're not perfect at speaking, so I can't expect to do it now. Um, but the I think it's just one of those things where you just have to pay really close attention to what the person is saying and try not to get too involved in what you're doing on your end. The most times that I've found myself going, did I ask this already? Did they mention this already? Is when too, I'm overthinking what I want to ask rather than actually listening to what they're saying.
Hmm.
So as long as you're just really paying attention and absorbing what they're saying, and the more that you do that, it'll become easier for you to balance your head being, okay, where am I going with this conversation and am I actually paying attention to what they're saying? It's one of those things that you just like, still trying to figure out how to get that perfect. And like I said, I probably never will, but it's one of those things where you just do it over and over and over again.
Yeah, for me, I've found that the more minimalistic my setup is, the easier it is to focus. And I mean, right now my setup literally is I have a program with some questions written down,
Hmm.
and then I have you to the left. I purposely I try to make sure I can't see myself because I used to have it where I can see myself, and I would be so worried about how I look and all of that that it would not help at all with my focus.
It's so hard right now to not look at myself in the top right corner of this screen. I'm trying to keep perfect eye contact with you on the monitor because if I don't do that, I'll be constantly looking like, is my hair a mess? I just had this long train ride, so my hair is a little bit, the headphones are kind of covering it, but I could get in a bad habit of just staring at myself and then not paying attention to anything that's happening.
Well, if it makes you feel better, I think it looks good.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's wavy today. It could be worse. It could be better. But you know that point in your hair where it's not short enough to look good and it's not long enough to pull it down so it looks good. You're
Yeah.
just in that like you look like an ugly baby doll. That's where my hair is right now. That's kind of where I'm like a Cabbage Patch Kid from like I don't know 1965. And it's just that's the point on my hair. In 3 months, you're gonna be like, oh, that's a cool head of hair. And if I cut it, you'd be like, that looks pretty good. But right now, I'm on a day-to-day basis whether or not it's tolerable.
I think it's cool.
Thank you.
What got you into DJing?
I lost my job at CBS television.
Oh,
That's I 4 or
Did-
5 years ago. I had a really what were you gonna say?
I was gonna ask if you would mind explaining the story.
Oh, yeah, I don't mind. I basically what happened was years and years ago, my friend he goes by the name Orange Bananas. He's a bassist and a producer, amazing songwriter, and he's like the best DJ I've ever seen. Now, to be fair, I don't really study DJing, so I haven't seen a ton, but whenever I do see stuff, or they're like, this guy's the best, I look at my friend who can do it without like monitoring or anything, and I'm like, he's still better somehow. Like I think he's the best, but he got me and my roommate Valerio into it right before the pandemic happened, probably like late 2019, early 2020. And so I had very basic knowledge of how to do it. And then the pandemic happened, so I never ended up doing it as a job. And during the pandemic, I graduated college and there was no gigs. I was a performance major on drums. Like you can't drum in the city. There was like the city was like The Walking Dead for probably an entire year. Nothing was open. No one was out on the streets. It was weird. So I was like, I need to get a more traditional job to pay these bills now that I'm out of college. And I loved when I was in high school, I used to watch The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon every night, which is that sparked my love for late night television, which is why like I call my show The Vibe Chamber, the internet's late night show. Why? Because it makes it more fun for me. That's why I do it. But I was like, okay, well, let me try to work at a TV show. I could work at a late night show. I loved Fallon. I applied to so many different jobs. I can't even remember how many. Probably more than I'd say probably 30, maybe just like TV internships. And I got this job as a CBS page, which is where I worked at CBS Mornings. And basically how a page works is you get rotated a bunch. And so you meet people at all different shows. Um, And by the way, may I add, the people at CBS Mornings are like the greatest. Gayle, Tony, Nate, and everyone on that side, the nicest people I think I've ever met in the industry and just in general. But I had met this group of people who were the people who they like I don't know what the right word for this is. They're responsible for the studio audiences in television shows. So they're the people that make sure that they can fill the studio with people, how many tapings they have per day. I met them before I had gone on my rotation to CBS Mornings. And so when they needed a new PA to work partially at the Rachel Ray show, which was in one part of New York, in one part of the city, and the other part at the Drew Barrymore show, which is on 57th Street, they hired me because I had met them in a short rotation as a page. What ended up happening though was right at the end of both shows' seasons, Rachel Ray retired. So Rachel Ray's she I don't know if she retired like from doing everything, but she her show stopped and now she's doing I
Mhm.
think like philanthropy. I think she like makes meals for people in underprivileged places. So when that happened, they cut our team back down, and since I was the newest to join, I was the first to go. Makes total sense. As soon as I heard that her show was ending, I was like, okay, I better get my ducks in a row because I know how this goes.
Ah,
And my buddy who had taught me to DJ 4 years prior was like, hey, I can get you on this booking app. This is a 35-minute story that was supposed to be like 60 seconds. I apologize.
no, yeah,
Um,
that's great.
he's like, let me get you on this booking app that I'm on. And they accepted me and texted me 2 days later to start working. They're like, hey, can you work this Saturday at this bar in the city? And then I immediately spent like let's see. No, I think I joined the app like a week before my first gig, and then like 2 days before I started doing it. That week, all I was doing was just downloading music because I was like, I need to do well at this because my job is done, and I can't in New York City, you can't go a month or two without income. You'll be screwed. So it was really just like a desperation thing that I needed a job right now, and it was the first thing that happened. But what ended up happening now is I can choose my whether I not want to work or not. They offer me dates, and I can say yes or no, and it's always late at night, so I can schedule interviews on my YouTube channel whenever I want. So
Hmm.
it was like a total desperation thing. Lost my job, and even though I knew it was coming, I was freaking out when it happened. Like I got the call, and I was like, I knew what the call was going to be, but I was still sitting there afterward, like, oh, this is no good. I just spent 2 years investing myself in this industry, and now I'm just done.
Oh,
But it honestly, one of the best things that happened for me because now I devote myself like 100% of my time not DJing is just playing Super Smash Brothers Ultimate and working on the Vibe Chamber. So that's the incredibly long novelization version of how I'm hit play on a DJ turntable 3 nights a week.
I think it's so interesting how whenever something you think is going wrong in your life, oftentimes that really just leads to another opportunity that might be even
Yeah.
better for you.
Yeah. I That's part of the reason I was going through some nonsense at the end of 2020, bunch of things, and I was like, I need to get my mind off all this. I got to start working on something. Like I said, I couldn't do drums, which is why I started my YouTube channel. So like all this stuff that was negative that was happening, I ended up turning into something that, well, give me 5 years. If in 5 years I'm not on top of the world, then it'll just be a negative created by another negative. But right now, I'd like to view it as a positive that came out of that kind of stuff. Just keeping an open mind.
Yeah, it's a lot better than I feel like nowadays the world is there's so many different problems everywhere. I mean,
Mhm.
it's the case in every time period, really. There's so
Yeah,
many different problems, and I think focusing too much on the negative, even though it's hard, is not healthy. It's
it's
always
never
better to
good.
keep an open mind if you can.
Look, because the whole thing about making making lemonade out of lemons. That's true. Like if you just keep if you keep the mindset of like, well, something crappy just happened, so I'm just going to be miserable about it. Um, then you'll probably stay being miserable. But if you keep the mindset of like, well, let me see what I can do with it, it might work. I'm talking like I'm Confucius, but I'm.
I feel like I do that on my show too. I'll come up with this lesson that I learned, and I mean, I feel like by doing this interview show, I actually learned so many lessons, and
Yeah.
it it really shapes how I live my own day-to-day life every time I have a guest on.
That Look, I love to learn stuff, and that's part of the reason I like doing what I do is learning stuff hands-on from people that I specifically like want to learn from. So yeah, that's the best way to do it. And you and I are very fortunate people that we have the privilege of being able to learn from other people that we care about.
Yeah. So, can I think for a second?
Yes, sir.
Do you have any guest that you really want to have on in the future, and maybe they're more busy people and they might be
Hmm.
harder to reach, but you think that you probably could get them on if you worked really hard to reach out to them?
Like I've had people on that I never thought in a million years I would get to. Um, Gayle King is one of them who I mean, that's a different circumstance. I met her when I was a page, and she's just like one of those people that, like, I don't think it registers to her how famous she is. So when you, like, there's no ego or anything. So when I like asked, would she do this? There was no like, I'm Gayle King. I'm not gonna do this. It was just like, oh yeah, of course. That's someone I used to work with. So and Many people, Steve Gadd, I basically have to say everyone if I was going to say talk about everyone that I didn't think I'd ever be able to talk to,
Honestly,
but just,
same.
some of them. Um, so I try to be very optimistic and go for essentially anyone that I'm interested in, whether or not I think that they'll actually say yes or no.
Yeah.
Because why not?
It's not
My
gonna
hands,
hurt
there's
if
not
you don't get a
acid on my
response.
keyboard. Yeah, I'm not like burning myself on sulfuric acid trying to like type in an email saying, "Would you be on my show?" One per, I don't know if I could get him at this point. John Williams, the
Hmm.
the composer. I love John Williams.
Yeah.
He is one person, and then
I can't think of
again,
anyone who doesn't love
he is, well, actually, you're not going to believe this.
him.
I know some people who like hate John Williams, which is the
Really?
most specific thing to dislike. They're like, because John Williams does have a tendency to base a lot of his soundtracks off of things that he's heard,
Oh yeah. Yeah,
like
that's
everyone
everyone though.
does.
Yeah.
I will say, there's a couple examples where they're very, 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 very similar. Specifically, there's a very old classical piece that sounds like Darth Vader's March. I can't remember what it's called.
Oh,
There are a few examples of that kind of like linear thinking where it's like very similar, but
yeah.
when you have been writing music for
As long
375
as
years like John Williams has, that's bound to happen. So
yeah.
John Williams, and then there's a cop car going outside. I don't know if you can hear that. My
Good.
walls are made out of paper mache, so if
Oh,
someone sneezes in the apartment across the street, I get like an HD version of it in my ear. Um,
you've probably heard cop sirens on my show too a couple times, so no
really.
worries. Yeah.
Um, Yeah, John Williams, just because I think he's the most his ability to capture the essence of whatever he's composing for in audio form is like unmatched,
Insane.
insane. Similarly, Hans Zimmer,
Oh
love
yeah.
Hans Zimmer, specifically Interstellar. I got the whole Christopher Nolan Blu-ray set, 4K Blu-ray set, and his work on all that is amazing.
Yeah.
And then Bryan Cranston. I don't know if I could get Bryan Cranston on. I'd probably at this point, he's doing the Today Show, so he's got other things to worry about. He's got other, but I think he's one of the best actors I've ever seen in my entire life. And you know what? Also, Martin Scorsese. Again, I'm not saying these people would say yes or not. These are just like my absolutely I love these people. Martin Scorsese is up there. What
When you
about
re
you?
Oh, for me? Oof. I think for me it would be so most of the people that I really admire are musicians.
Uh-huh.
So it would probably be Jacob Collier. I don't know if you're familiar with
Oh,
him.
yeah. Dude, I've been listening to Jacob Collier since I was in high school, and
Me
I was a
too.
massive Snarky Puppy fan in high school. They were my jam, and I had known about him on YouTube, and then they released this film called, or it was an album called Family Dinner Volume 2. And I went to go see the like film screening of the concert video, and he has a song called Don't You Know on that, which is also on his, I think it's his debut record, In My Room, I think is what it's
Yeah,
called. And yeah, so I've been hip to Jacob Collier since forever. Sorry, keep going.
me too. I was gonna say he's actually I consider him to be my musical hero because
Really?
anytime I feel bad about my skills in music or really just anything, if I listen to a video of him talking about something, his energy is just so unmatched that
Yeah.
I feel so inspired anytime I hear him talk.
He's one of those people that's so into what he's doing that even if you're not a musician, you're just like, I want to hear this kid talk.
Yeah.
Like, because he's just so, the harmony, and you got the key, like this is the diminished flat five, and then you do the harmony, it's beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah, he's awesome. And then I would also say anyone from the band Wolfpack.
Absolutely.
They're also my favorite band. And actually, this might sound weird, but I'm also a big fan of AJR, the pop
Okay, I
band.
know HR. Yeah.
Yeah, they get a lot of
The
hate for some reason.
world's smallest violin. Da, 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 da.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know that group.
yeah, yeah, I love them. That would be my top three.
Hmm. That's awesome.
And yeah.
Dope.
I don't know why AJR gets a lot of hate. I really like their music a lot because their beats are so different compared to what you hear on the radio.
They do use a lot of interesting samples. Now, I'm not like I know them. I'm not really a fan of theirs per se, but I will give them the credit that there's some stuff in there. I'm like, I wouldn't have thought to throw this sample in, you
Yeah.
know?
Do you think everyone should start their own interview show?
No, because then less people will want to watch mine and yours.
That's true.
Uh, well, first of all, let's be fully honest with ourselves, Nolan. Everyone already has. Every single person on the planet Earth now has a podcast. And I'm one of those people, and you're one of those people. Um, but if you want to, like if you're with the kind of person that wants this, if you're doing it just because you want to put content out and you think it's easier just to have someone else like to talk to, you think that's it? No, because then it's not real. But if you like want to do it, it's fun, then absolutely. It's great. Zoom has made it possible. I couldn't do anything if there was no video chat. Rest in peace, Skype. But I couldn't, that nowadays anyone could do it. If they really want to do it, you can talk to people that you never thought you would be able to because you don't have to book them to come. You don't have to get a flight. They can just talk to you right over the internet, which is, I mean, obvious. That's not groundbreaking information that I'm shedding. But yeah, if it's something you're passionate about, then yes.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of Skype, when I started my interviews, I used Discord to
Hmm.
record.
Okay.
And I think even if you use Discord, I think that's still a good, I mean, it's free, right? It's still really good
Absolutely.
for this kind of thing.
I have had a I'm 25 years old. I should not be putting this out because it makes me sound so stupid. Me and my friends have had a Minecraft server for like 5 years. And so I'm very acquainted to talking to my friends on Discord. Like anything that's free and easy for someone to use is the best way to do it. As easy it is as it is for someone to get on their computer and talk to you, that's all that's important. You
Yeah.
know? Yeah.
And then
Whatever's the most simple.
you just gotta learn how to do it.
Yeah,
Can I think for a second?
absolutely. I'm gonna put some lip balm on. Oh, this one might be out.
I think I should do that for my preparation, honestly.
Do you know I wear makeup before I do the vibe chamber?
Really?
Yeah. Because here's the thing. Everything I do for my YouTube channel is because it's more fun for me. I have the philosophy that like not everything has to be necessary in terms of what it it gives to like an actual like what it objectively gives to the final product. I just want to do everything in my power to make everything the most fun for me to do it because that in and of itself will make the final product better. And I was like looking at myself and I was going like, man, my skin is looking a little whack here. Okay. So I was like, what do they do? I'm looking shiny. That's the first thing. Because especially in the summer, I turn my air off to do these. And so then I look like a mirror. And so I was like, and then people on television always between every commercial are putting powder on. That's one thing I did learn. There you go. There, now I have an answer for what you asked me like 30 minutes ago. I wear powder because of I watch people on television do it, and that's really it. And it makes it more fun for me because I feel more official. That's why I do it.
Wow. Well, that gives me a lot to think about. As a drummer, do you think that being good at rhythms has affected other areas of your life?
Yes. Namely, I find it really hard to sleep if there's any type of rhythm going on around
Really?
my room, which in New York City is kind of difficult because people are almost always playing music. But since my brain is kind of uh this makes this sound so annoying and like I'm like a genius is what it makes. I'm not trying to say my brain is so attuned to rhythms that whenever I hear anything consistent, anything with a pulse, my brain immediately is like what is that? Listen to it. And so it distracts me. If it's like random white noise, oh, I love that. Beautiful. I knock right out. But if I'm trying to sleep and I hear any type of rhythm anywhere that's consistent, my brain like immediately goes to that and I can't focus on anything else. So that's one thing that has its that's a negative aspect of it, but it's positive in the sense that I'm always just whenever I'm hearing anything, the first thing that I notice, like especially if it's like a new song, is what the groove is, which works for it helps for DJing because as a DJ, your entire job is making sure that you're attuned to the like tempo that the whole crowd is and knowing
Oh,
how a song, what type of song, what feeling that crowd wants that night. And it changes
yeah.
every single day. And your entire job is just kind of hone in on that and have a Rolodex in your head of going like, this specific beat is really working right now. And if you are attuned to that, you can go, oh, I know something that fits just right with this. That is exactly in this vein. So it helps for me in that sense. But the negative is, like I said, if I'm trying to do anything and I hear a rhythm, that I can't focus on anything else.
So do you often play in a band as a drummer?
Yeah, I did. Well, often. I did a lot in college, and then once I started the Vibe Chamber and once I got my job, I really narrowed down that it became less of a career option for me because in college I kind of realized I don't want to be touring in my life. Like I think my life's mission is to have like a family and children. That is like for me is my I I have so many things that I'm passionate about, but on like a core level, that's what I want. And I realized I don't want to be running around, touring with people, carrying my drum set every night to some random place, uh, and going out of town all the time because you can't really have a family like that unless you're, really killing it, making it a ton of money and you can, come back home all the time. Um, so I really narrowed it down and now I just play with one of my good friends who's named Augie Bello. Uh, if you ever heard on TikTok, there's a remix of Miss Jackson with a sax solo on it.
I'm
That's
actually
his
not on
like
TikTok.
I deleted TikTok, so it's good that you're not on it. It's the worst. It's awful. But he has this very if you most people would know him from this sound that's been used like a trillion times of him soloing over Miss Jackson by Outkast. And whenever he calls me up, I'm like, yes, let's do it. Because it's me and then my friend, the Orange Bananas, the DJ, he's a bassist. So it's really just my friends and stuff. So I save drumming for times where I know it's gonna be really fun for me. And then the DJing is my actual like job.
You play any other instruments?
I play, I was gonna say there used to be a guitar hanging up there. I can play bass a little bit. Um, and I can do very, very, very basic stuff on a guitar and like keyboard and stuff like that. But again, it's like very, very elementary. Drums are my only instrument where I actually feel, confident when I'm doing it.
Hmm. So do you think that being able to play music has helped you interview other musicians as well?
Yes, and it goes back to that thing of having information in the back of your head to pull from when you feel like you have nothing else to say. When I talk to musicians, I feel like I have a kind of a base connection with them in some amount that makes it easier for me to keep a conversation going because at the end of the day, I can fall back on just talking shop with musicians, especially drummers. So, you go to a drummer and you just say something drummy sounding, and they could go off for 3.5 hours. So it's nice knowing that I have that uh, uh like in the back of my head, kind of always ready to go when I talk to them. It also makes it a little more stressful because I'm not the best at remembering specific facts about music, like albums. Unless it's something that I've listened to a million times, I'm probably not going to remember the name of all the songs on an album or who's playing on it. And when you talk to musicians, especially old school guys, they know so much. And so I like they'll be like, "Oh yeah, that was Miles Davis's record for that. Oh, that was on, Blue Note in 1967." And so while I do have information that can help me with them sometimes because I just naturally don't remember that kind of stuff, it stresses me out a little bit because I feel like since I'm a musician, there's a pressure to know it. But in general, yeah, it does help a little bit that I feel just kind of that base connection with them that makes talking a little bit easier.
Yeah, I agree with that a lot. I think sometimes I worry a little bit though that because I haven't interviewed anyone who isn't a musician at all. So I'm a
Uh-huh.
little worried about how when I do interview someone like that, how I'll ask questions to them because so much of what I ask is related to music. But that's also why I changed the name of the show. The original name was actually called Melody Makers, and then I changed that to what it is now, which is Artist Corner. So
Yeah,
that
yeah.
way I can talk to different kinds of people. I was wondering if when you interview people who you're not as familiar with what they do, if you have any ways to ask better questions.
If for some reason it's not something that I'm, because like I said, some of the stuff I become familiar with in the fact that like while I'm researching the people, and some of it's stuff that I just know already because I've already been interested in them. In the cases where it's someone who I feel like I innately know less than someone else just because I haven't been keeping up with them for all my life like some other people. The main thing is I just try to talk to personal stuff, because that's something that everyone has in common. Instead of always talking shop, uh, ask about like everyone loves food. That is one thing.
True.
If I really want to like connect with somebody and I want to learn about them as a person rather than, just recite statistics about their career, um, I like to, what are the best places to eat in Houston, Texas, if they're from Houston, Texas. If they're not from Houston, Texas, then it's very embarrassing because you just said it. But that kind of a thing. Where would you eat? Where are the best places? That everyone loves that. Can talk about really personal things that aren't necessarily just career focused.
Cool. What are some places you like to eat at in New York?
Oh, don't get me started, Nolan. Okay. First of all, I'm gonna say the craziest thing ever. And I was just there, which makes me think about it. The best food in New York State is in Utica, New York, not New York City. I need to make sure my address here is hidden. Like I'm gonna go find out because if anyone sees this and knows that I said that the best food is not in New York City, they're gonna kill me. Utica, New York is the best place. If you like Italian food, it
Oh
cannot
yeah.
be beat. There's this place called Delmonico's Steakhouse, and they have this thing called Chicken Riggies, which is like penne alla vodka, but with rigatoni and chicken in it. The best
That's
you'll ever get.
that sounds so good.
There's this place called Venice Pizzeria, which has something called tomato pie, which sounds vile, but what it really is just it's basically upside down pizza, just like dough and sauce and like Parmesan cheese on the top. That's the absolute best. Um,
What about dessert places?
Okay, there's a place again in Utica, New York. All my places are in around Utica. It's called Holland Farms. It is the best bakery. If anyone has ever been there, you know I'm not lying. And it's. Have you ever seen The Office?
Yes.
Do you remember?
There are so
Whatever
many
her name.
episodes in The Office. I feel like I mix so many of them together.
Do you remember? It's she's played by Rashida Jones. I think it's Karen Filippelli. She's Jim's like ex-girlfriend. She moves to a different office location, which is in Utica, New York. And on the desk when this episode opens is a box of Holland Farms donuts from this place that I like because they like went and figured out all the local specialties. So when they did that episode, it is like accurate. That's how iconic this place is. That is the spot.
It's funny how you talked a lot about Italian restaurants because I
Uh-huh.
actually work in an Italian restaurant currently as my day job.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
What do you do?
I'm just a dishwasher.
Hell yeah, man. That's the
Yeah.
way, dude. Paying the bills is an underrated thing. You know, I and especially now you get to probably do you get to like get free food and stuff.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I
And
if I had
discounts.
and discount if I had discounted slash free food in an Italian restaurant, I don't think I'd do anything else. I would just eat all day. That is my comfort food. My family's Italian, so like I'm jealous about that. I never
Yeah.
I that's Are there a lot of Italians in Hawaii?
No, it's just actually there's not enough Italian restaurants in Hawaii. So
There's not enough Italian restaurants anywhere. There got to be more.
True, that's true. Unless you go to Italy, which I have.
Yeah, I guess there's probably enough there. I've never been though. I was raised on, fake Italian food, like which I guess is also sacrilegious, but like, American Italian food, stuff that was invented in Little Italy, that kind of stuff. I've never actually been to the real place.
Do you have any other hobbies outside of music or podcasting?
Oh yeah. I First of all, Super Smash Brothers, that is my jam, okay? When we're done with this, I'm
Yeah,
gonna watch a tournament. That's how stupid this is. And then I have we can see behind me. This is a 150-inch screen,
that's a
and
screen.
up, yes, like not like a TV. Up above me is a projector that I project onto that. And my hobby is I love to collect 4K Blu-ray movies and then watch them on this.
That's
That
awesome.
is my I love that.
I had no idea that was a
Yeah.
screen.
Yeah, it was like $20 on Amazon. So it's not really much. It's basically just white cloth with a black border that I like tack to my wall.
Yeah, that's all
But
you need.
that is like my I love that so much. We could do 4.5 hours where we just talk about like the technical specifications of film transfers and like the cases the discs come in, and
Did you see
true
that?
for
Did you see that they released a 4K version of the original SpongeBob movie?
really?
Yeah,
How do they?
I have no
Okay,
idea. I saw it on Twitter.
that mean wow. Because sometimes, okay, I'm gonna stop myself because again, I could this could go on forever. But the way that movies are transferred from film to 4K, like old movies, is that they're made on film, and film has a really high resolution. It just degrades very quickly. But since film is optical, it's real light reacting with real ions on a sheet of film. If you scan it if the film is stored correctly and you scan it well, it has incredibly high resolution. Like it's like IMAX film is like 16 or 18K equivalent to digital. So that would mean that SpongeBob was hand animated and then put on film, because I doubt that they would have mass. That's crazy. I got to see that. I'm gonna buy that.
Yeah, hopefully that's real. I hope I'm not. I hope I didn't see something that they just lied about, because that can happen
You know,
sometimes.
that's true. That was my first iPod I ever had was this, like a second or third gen iPod Nano with the screen that's like that big, and I owned the music video to Into the Night, which was Santana featuring Chad Kroeger from Nickelback, and the SpongeBob movie. So I go back on the SpongeBob movie.
Oh yeah. Oh, a really funny story actually. When I was at work one time, they were playing, the Goofy Goober song. I mean, obviously,
Yes.
that's not even a
Yeah.
question, but they played the original song that,
Oh,
that song
yep.
basically covered. And
It's a parody of,
I
yeah.
had no idea. And I was like,
Yep.
wait, this sounds really familiar. So I went to the iPad at work and played Goofy Goober right after that song.
I want to rock is the original, right?
I
I
think
want
so.
to rock.
Yeah.
And dun, da, 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 da. That's awesome. I feel like that'd be a great thing to eat, like spaghetti bolognese with Goofy Goober playing above me.
Well, it was after we closed, but
Oh, that's
yeah.
still, I mean, it's still awesome, but I would think it's pretty hilarious if everyone's sitting there drinking like a Bordeaux. That's French. That would make sense.
I'll
I
do
don't
that.
know.
I'll do that next time we're open and that song plays. No, I'm just kidding.
You're gonna get a swift eviction notice from your job.
What if I get fired for doing that?
I'm gonna say that I do not endorse that idea, because if I get an email from you saying you told me to play Goofy Goober and now I have no source of income, I'm going to probably I don't know how I'll be able to live the rest of my life.
That's funny. Is there anything that you want to talk about?
Ooh, hmm, so many things, Nolan, so many things. Um, I don't know. If you get me on something, I can talk forever, but I have to be like, you have to like ignite it, you know? Um, I don't know. I can't come up with anything. See, these are the moments where I don't have anything to say, and I'm just talking to keep going, you know?
You're good. Yeah.
Um,
Are there any movies that you're excited about coming out soon?
yes, I want to see well, no, I didn't. I guess not any coming out, but I want to see the Godzilla minus one. Never saw that, and I'm very excited about that. And then Killers of the Flower Moon, which is Martin Scorsese's new movie. I want that to be I want them to release that for home purchase because I will immediately buy that because that's like a 3.5 hour movie and that's much more enjoyable to watch in your house than in a theater because then you're like 2 hours in and you have to go to the bathroom. Then you have to do that thing where you feel uncomfortable because you don't want people to like think, wow, this guy's going to the bathroom a lot. Is there something wrong with him? Even though it's like a 3.5 hour movie. So you're like sneaking out like this, you know? That can get a little bit stressful about those long movies in theaters. So I'm excited for that to come to disc so I can comfortably be in my home and enjoy it.
Yeah, I found for me, I mean, going to the movie theater is fun, but I always feel more comfortable watching a movie at home, and that makes it more fun to me.
It's the way to do it.
Yeah.
You got to get a projector, Nolan. That's my friends are so sick of hearing me talk about projecting movies. It's like I think I'm gonna have no friends by the end of this year because I'm just gonna have they're gonna be like, I can't hear about this anymore. I'm sorry.
Or maybe your friends will be the characters in the movie.
That's true. I'm making a movie right now. That's what's going on. It
If you made a movie, what would you make it about?
would definitely be a mob crime movie. I love that. Goodfellas, Casino. I'm just gonna. This is all Martin Scorsese movies. I'm realizing, like I guess Reservoir Dogs isn't a mob movie, but I love that crime. If you write anything that has to do with crime, I am 100% there. Throw in Italian mobsters and have a good scene where they're eating Italian food, and then I'm just so that would be my movie. It'd be like an Italian mobster movie, and then it would just be so much food that would just be eating in like every scene. That would be my if
So
I could
basically,
choose.
basically you're making an Italian mob mukbang movie.
That's exactly yes. It would just be like it basically be like mobster ASMR, but with like penne Alfredo and like crispy bread.
That's so funny. What is your music selection process like when you do DJ gigs?
Uh, the first thing is I just stare at people creepily, not like in that way, but I'm just staring at like the audience and I'm going like, okay, why are you talking still? What about this song is not hitting you? And I go, that person's digging it. But that's really it. Is I'm just watching what people are reacting to, and then just since I listen to a bunch of music, I know what songs kind of overlap. Like I know that if 50 Cent is working, like and if I'm playing like in the club, I'm like, okay, perfect. 90s or early 2000s hip hop. This is working. So if I can probably play another hit. Like I could do like Gold Digger, or Gin and Juice, or like and then if I want to push it forward, do some Drake. But it's all based on the fact that I'm just staring out. As soon as I start a song, like the instant people can recognize it, I'm like, okay, who's digging this, who's not. And then like if Taylor Swift is working, I can probably do Katy Perry and then Miley Cyrus and all that kind of stuff. If Avicii is working, you could do Martin Garrix or Calvin Harris. It's really just watching how people react. The number one job for a DJ to do, and again, like I'm not a DJ's DJ. Like I'm not the kind. I don't practice DJing. For me, it is just a job that I love doing. But at the end of the day, it's a job.
Yeah.
Um, so the only thing that I know is just watch how the crowd reacts to everything and just keep a good knowledge of what stuff is similar to that. Like I said earlier about like knowing what grooves work, maybe two artists sound completely different, but each of them has a song that has the vibe is the same, even if not the lyrical content or the actual genre, but there's just something about it that connects those two. And one of them works, then you can go to the next one and all that. But just watching the crowd is the what is fully what I'm doing. I do nothing else except watch the crowd and see how they react to stuff.
Have you found that your musical taste change when you're in a club setting compared to when you just listen to music at home?
I love pop music so much, but my job is now only I only listen to pop, and I'm counting hip hop in that because I'm playing like pop hip hop, Nice for What by Drake, amazing song, but that's a pop song at the end of the day. It's hip hop, but it's pop. Um, and so as much as I've always loved, kind of more out music, fusion, like progressive rock, I found myself going more to that when I'm not working because my fix for popular music is done at work. So when I'm not working, the last thing I want to do is listen to all the songs that I just played because I do like 4, 5, 6 hour sets. And so when I'm like kind of now going more into listening to calmer, you know, more less produced popular music just because I get my fix for it in at work.
Yeah, I relate to that with listening, not wanting to listen to songs you listen to at work. Because
Uh-huh.
when I'm at work, in a restaurant, there's the typical restaurant playlist that they play for popular music, and
Hmm.
there's a whole bunch of different genres that they might play, but it's kind of the same set of songs, and you hear a lot of the same songs over a period of time.
Yeah.
And
I
that's why
my
oh
Sorry,
sorry.
keep going, keep going.
I was just
No, no,
gonna
no,
say
that that
that's why at home if I hear that song, I skip it immediately because I've been hearing that song all day at work or the
that's
same
the
type of song.
my girlfriend used to work at an Aeropostale in 2000 like 17 or 18, and so she cannot listen to the song "The Middle" by Zed because that was just on the radio all the time. Like she will not listen to it because of that. And I like that song, but I also didn't have a retail job at that time, so I'm a little bit less adverse to hearing it.
It's also not even necessarily that the songs are bad. It's just you've heard them so many times, you don't want to hear it anymore.
My ringtone used to, or not my ringtone, my wake up tone used to be, which song was it? It was Lingus by Snarky Puppy. You know that one?
Yeah, I know that one.
Doo, 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 doo. That was my wake up tone, and I actually had to change it because I love that song so much, and I was starting to hate it because it was my wake up tone, and I had to like not listen to it for months and change my ringtone so that way when I could hear it again, I wouldn't immediately just start sweating and get stressed out.
Yeah, that's why you never use your a song that you really like as your ringtone because you will start to hate it.
You associate it. I'm Pavlovian in every single possible way with my music. If I associate something I love, but it happens to be with something I dislike, it just ruins it for me for
Oh,
a very long time.
yeah. How do you feel about separating art from the artist?
I am 100% the kind of person that can do that. Um, I have a I wrote a joke about this, but I'll tell you off because it's kind of an off color joke.
Okay.
But I I think obviously I'm not going to say it's not harder for me to listen to a musician who I think or know has done not good things.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say that there's not a difference, but at the end of the day, in 2000 years, the song is really what's going to be the legacy or the movie or whatever it is that the person made.
Not the person.
And you can't, yeah, less like this, less than the things they did in their personal life. And like I said, it's definitely not easy. It's not like I don't think about it, but sometimes a song or something is just so good that you can't help it but separate it. And like I said, art in itself means so much more than the human that made it to me, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And the legacy that the art will have. The if amazing films. I love saying films instead of movies. Amazing movies are going to be watched for years and years, and it could be inspiring. In 1,000 years, people could be inspired by an actor who, in his personal life, was not a good person, but they're inspiring. His work is inspiring somebody. So I don't think you can just completely say that you can't enjoy what they do because of what they've done. And again, there's levels to that. I'm the kind of, I think that there's always a conversation with everything. It's never just black and white. So it's obviously there are times where it's easier, like, oh, that guy throws litter out his car, like trash out his car. He litters like that. Is a lot easier than doing something terrible and associating that. But in general, I'm pretty good at separating so if I really love something to understand that I love the thing that they made, not necessarily the person that made it.
Yeah, and I mean, especially if you're impacted by a piece of art too, I feel like you're not necessarily impacted by the person and how they
Hmm.
were in their personal life. You're impacted by the actual art. And I think
Exactly.
it's important to realize that because sometimes I feel like I've heard a lot of conversations online where people don't know how to separate the two.
And another thing to remember is that if someone does something negative, it's going to feel worse to someone who's had that negative thing in their own life than to someone who hasn't. So like if someone people are going to be more impacted by certain things somebody does than other people will be. So like if you've
Yeah.
had a negative experience in some particular way and an artist is someone who perpetuates that thing, that's going to sting way more to that person than it is to someone who may have some completely other negative thing that's happened to them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I keep that in mind. So like I know like if there's an artist where I go like I really don't get why people are hating on them or hating their art because they're a bad person, I have to tell myself, well, I don't have a personal connection to the thing that this person did, so I can't put myself in their shoes. I'm
Mm.
still gonna like the music, but I try to keep in my head that just because I don't feel a personally attacked by it, that doesn't mean that someone else shouldn't as well. Or that it also doesn't mean that I should feel attacked for them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And if let's say there is a song or something that you really like that happen happened to have been made by someone who did something bad, are you
Hmm.
less likely to talk about that song with anyone?
Not talk about it, but DJ it. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
That's something that there was a period of time where Lizzo was in some hot water, and I love Lizzo music. She's awesome. She makes great music, and there was like a week where I was playing Lizzo, and a couple people were giving me some negative looks, and I was like, I hate to fall to a couple people looking at me, but my job is to make people happy. So I had to kind of take a little break from her for just a little bit. But talking about it with people, no, because when you're talking, you can like explain yourself more thoroughly, and people are more understanding when you're talking to them than when you're just, I don't know.
Yeah.
When you're in a conversation, it's much more. There's a lot more leeway and stretch and forgivingness.
Are there any artists that you really like and are a good role model to you to contrast what we've been talking about?
Well, no, not necessarily. Well, yeah, yes. The problem is that like my favorite musician of all time is Michael Jackson, and to say that Michael Jackson is a good role model, I think is controversial. So that's but like he's my favorite in terms of just the art. I think he's the best that's ever done music, really, in my opinion. In terms of, I'm trying to think of people that I like who are specifically good role models. I'd say, Michael League from Snarky Puppy, I guess, because like, I don't know what he's doing in his private life, but from what it seems, he's just a hardworking guy who does the music that he likes to do and is just devoted to making kind of less traditional and, I mean, making a living doing fusion rock jazz is something you can only do if you're really passionate about it because it's not like there's a massive need for it that it's going to make you a ton of money. So he's someone I think that's just I grew up I'm around high school age really admiring his work ethic and his ability to just devote himself to the thing that he likes the most and kind of carve out a whole new sector of pop rock or rock fusion jazz, but somehow make it really popular to a bunch of people my age. Like that, he's someone I'd say is like that. And yeah, I don't know. I'd have to really take time to think about that because again, I don't know what these people are doing always in their personal lives, so it's
Yeah.
hard to say, you know?
Yeah. Can I think for a second?
Absolutely. I hope
Also,
I'm not droning on too much.
no, you're good. Also, I was gonna ask how are you doing so far?
I'm having a great time. I love to talk. I love to talk too much. So I'm having a fantastic time. And I just drank a giant cup of coffee, so I'm just hopped up on caffeine right now.
I'm having fun too.
Okay, I'm good. All right, that's good.
And you're good.
Thank you. I appreciate it. You're good. You're great.
No, you're good.
You're good.
No, you are.
You are too.
Is there anything you're working on right now that we can look forward to?
I right now I'm really devoting myself to my show. That is my number one thing, and I'm always trying to make it as high level as possible. Um, and so I'm constantly just like finding ways where I can improve and sometimes succeeding at it, sometimes not. But I'd really just say like the main really devoting myself to saying like this is what I do. You know, this isn't just a side hobby that I was doing, you know, once college was about to end or ending or whatever it was. I don't remember specifically. Now it's this is my thing that I do, and I'm making it as good as I can in the moment where I'm trying to do it. You know, I'm improving something. If I'm making it look better, it's as good as it's going to look at the time that that's what I'm focusing on. Um, so yeah, right now I'm just devoting all my time to that and learning new skills that help me. Right now I'm learning how to do very minor Java coding to improve my Wix website.
Hmm.
Um, that's one thing. I made it so when you hover my logo, the logo like indents a little bit. Took 2.5 hours because it kept not working. But you know, little things like that. I'm just always kind of tweaking what I'm doing and trying to make it better.
I think that's great. I did an assignment recently for my English class where I had to write an essay on attention to detail. And I think
Yeah,
it's cool that you have that in your work.
I am so into finding something that I'm really jealous of. I'm a really jealous person. Like when I see someone do something really well, and this is actually something that Howard Stern used to talk about a lot, is that he's fueled by this jealousy. And I think I have a positive type of jealousy where I don't hate the person. I just get really upset that I'm not as good as them, which makes me want to do better. So I'm always comparing like whatever I'm doing. If I'm working on lighting, learning how to light a shot, I'm watching his stuff and I'm going, why are they doing? What are they doing that I'm not? And that helps me get to a that constant comparison makes it a lot easier to improve. Because I'm comparing with so many different things, I don't fall into the habit of just trying to copy one person, but instead I'm kind of keeping my head fresh and not getting just keeping a type of subjectivity with what I'm doing and looking at what the stuff that I make not as myself, but as someone else would view it because I'm comparing myself constantly. It makes it easier to view things. I meant to say objectively. I'm viewing it objectively, less subjectively, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I get it. I think that's something I think about too. It's actually so hard to think about what actually is and what is all in here in your
Yes.
mind. It's
And
so
demo love
tricky.
is, you know, ever heard the phrase demo love?
No, I haven't.
It's when you make a demo of something. It's like relating to music. You make a demo, you know, your first initial thing, and no matter how much someone tells you, like you could have 100 people say you should change this thing. There are some people who get so involved, they get so like attached emotionally to the first iteration of the thing that they made that even something that could be, you know, construed as being objectively better, they're not going to like because they have this intense subjective love for the first version of the thing that they're making. And that is something that I fall victim to. So I try to
Me
break
too.
myself out of it by constantly comparing what I do to everything else. And like I said, I'm talking about it like I'm painting the Mona Lisa. I'm just talking to people on YouTube. But uh, yeah, just comparing everything I do to something that I feel is better than what I do. And it keeps you constantly improving, at least in some amount.
Hmm. Do you think that that can be unhealthy sometimes, or is it
Hmm.
generally a good thing?
Yeah, I think it's unhealthy if you do it with only one thing, because then you end up comparing yourself to one specific person and not the overarching uh level where you want to be. Like if you compare to one specific person or one specific thing, you start to obsess on them rather than the
Yeah,
thing that they're doing and how much better you think that theirs is than yours. But if you can find a way to find a bunch of sources to try to emulate, it makes it less personal and more about the actual experience of improving, and that's healthier. But for I know I can get into a habit of over analyzing and going, why is do I am I just like of mentally inferior in terms of like my ability to create things, because you go like, why is my thing so much worse than that other person's thing?
Yeah.
You can fall into that habit, but as long as I keep a lot of sources for that, I can kind of wipe around and move around and keep myself from getting too stuck on one thing.
I'm so glad I'm talking to you about this stuff because this is the kind of thing I think about a lot. And I feel like
Hmm.
I'm going a little crazy sometimes because I don't talk about it enough.
Yeah, it's definitely good to say. You gotta go, I think I have the unpopular opinion that I think if you have to kind of um you have to kind of hate yourself a little bit at all points with the thing that you're making. Because if you're perfectly confident in everything you're doing at all times, you're probably either ignorant and not very good, or you're just pompous. And so I always try to keep just a touch of just being like, I am worse than everyone else. Just a little bit, because it keeps me going.
Yeah. I think sometimes I worry that I might have imposter syndrome a bit because whenever I do anything, I always think I could do everything better. And then for some reason my brain just focuses on that instead of giving myself a pat on the back for doing it.
Okay, I think I see. What exactly? Imposter syndrome is something I've heard about, but I don't really understand how like what
S-
the depth specifics are.
Yeah, so I think it's basically where no matter I might be wrong a little bit, but I think it's how whenever you do a good amount of work, or let's say you're doing work that is actually good and everyone in your life is saying that you're doing good at it, but no matter how many people say that to you, for some reason you just can't believe that.
Yeah. Okay. That. Oh, yes. It's like, yeah, you feel like you're an imposter
Yeah,
because you're not actually good, and everyone's, yeah. Okay.
everyone's saying you are, but you don't believe them for some reason. And that's kind of how I am a
There's
lot of.
Yeah, I mean, there's something about being the person that makes something that makes it so much harder to like understand. Unless when people tell you it's bad, then you take it really to heart. Then it really hits. When someone tells you the thing you made sucked, for some reason that sticks
Yeah.
and you're like, "Oh, that person's right." Then someone tells you you're good and you're like, "Nah, they don't know what I'm doing. I'm a fraud." So I get what you're saying.
I guess yeah, some of that is probably normal to a degree. I
Hmm.
think I should probably not worry about it as much. Then again, it's easier said than done, you know.
100%. Some things you can are just gonna be there.
Yeah, like anxiety. I actually think
Oh yeah.
anxiety, no matter how much, you're never gonna be completely comfortable, I feel like. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
I agree with that. I mean, I'm sure there's somebody who's somehow found a way to like coax it down to nothing, but if it's something that is going to make me nervous, it's going to make me nervous. I'm going to be anxious about it, and again, I'm not on like anxiety meds. I don't know how those work, but without them, there's always something. Like if it's something I really care about, I'm going to get anxious about it, and it's about how do I react to that instead of trying to stop it.
Yeah, yeah. I guess it's less of you're never gonna not feel anxious, and it's more of accepting to be okay with being
Yeah.
anxious
Yeah.
and having bad feelings like that.
Yeah. You're totally right.
Cool. All right, I think it might be a good time to end it if you feel comfortable.
I feel comfortable. This is your you I thank you so much for having me on. I'll bet you if you could probably chop up everything I said and probably get something. You might be able to get something interesting out of it.
No,
Just
I'm
cut
doing
out
it
like
completely raw.
doing we're just no, no, no.
What?
Well, no, I have an inappropriate mind. I
Oh, I know what you were
that
gonna
is
say.
no, it's so stupid. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah.
I I'm not usually the person on this side, so I appreciate it. I love what you're doing. I love to have, it's so nice to know someone who's doing something that is the same like what I'm doing, because then it makes it feel a little bit less lonely.
Yeah.
And then it's good to talk about all these things and to see that, you are having similar feelings to I am. So I feel less crazy, you know?
I feel exactly the same way. And yeah, I'm really grateful that you also wanted to be on
Yeah.
because yeah, I really love talking to people that I couldn't have otherwise. And
Hmm.
it's a really great experience to be able to do that and learn from people. And yeah, it's life changing.
At the end of the day, we're very lucky people,
Yeah.
you know? Not everybody could do this, but not everybody gets to, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. I think
But
there's so many different factors into everything that it gets complicated sometimes. But
yes, sir.
yeah. Well, thank you everyone for listening. I upload every Friday on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts. If anyone has any feedback for me in the comments, please let me know. And that's about it. Thanks everyone for
Unless the
listening.
fe unless the feedback is that is that the Scotty guy sucks. Keep that to yourself.
True. Yeah,
I don't need more of
I'll
that.
fight back if anyone says that.
You'll fight for me? Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to ruin your ending.
No, you're good. And yeah, thanks everyone. I'll see you next Friday. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
I love you.